Good morning, Freedom Inc. family. So, if you are not part of this community and you haven't heard of what I've had to say in the past when I've made videos, um, have made videos for a while just because there's nothing really new to talk about. I mean, it's just kind of the same old shit, and people aren't willing to face reality. And are you willing to face reality? And then, if you are willing to face reality, you make that choice to take the black pill. You have to recognize that you can never come back from that. Uh, Once you know something, you just kind of know it, and it's just the way it is. So when are you going to recognize what leads to tyranny? Is it the politicians? Yeah. Is it individuals making uh, choices to oppress you for their benefit? Yeah. Um, would the politicians do what they do if they wasn't protected by the enforcement? No, they wouldn't. I've had this challenge going since 2017 with a $5,000 reward. I've had two people actually try and then swear that I'm wrong, to cite where in our Constitution that we, the people, gave government the authority to police society. And it doesn't exist. Trust me, I looked for it. And looked for it again and looked for it again. Now, at face value, if you know nothing that surrounds the Constitution other than what you've been told, and you read the Constitution, it would seem that there is an insinuation, at least, that government can police society. Well, I would tell you to go read Jefferson's writings about self-governance, and you will soon see that we as a society are supposed to police our own communities, and it takes a community to decide if someone needs to pay a debt to a victim. Now, the way it is today is that government controls you, it rules you. We are not free by any means. We've been sold the illusion of freedom, and we have bought that illusion because of the comfort that we as humans seek out. And it's a shame. It's a true shame. But what can you do about it? Um, at this point, nothing. It is over. This country is done, um, for many reasons. The main reason, in my mind, is because people love oppression. They love to be oppressed. They love to support their oppressors. They love to fly their gang flags, and that's what it is. It's the thin blue noose flag is just that. It's a gang flag. They love to fly it high and claim that they are patriots for supporting the ones who oppress them. And then you start asking them questions like, okay, you support the police, right? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So you would have supported the Gestapo also, correct? Well, no, they were murderers. They just did what they were told and killed certain people. Oh, like police do. Well, no, that's different because our police are good. They're here to protect and serve. Yeah, politicians, not the community, not the people. Well, they work for us. Okay, go fire them. Fire one. Well, it's just a few bad apples. Okay, so the good ones are on vacation all the time, I guess. Because if one good cop existed, there would literally be no bad cops. But when are you going to recognize this? When are you going to recognize what's actually happened here? And there's a lot at play. I've explained it before, like being a Monopoly game. And we're all playing the game, and we're all trying to pass go, and we're all trying to collect our $200. But you also have the person who, it's always your cousin that wants to be the banker. You also have the person playing the game who is the banker, but also makes the rules. But then he is the only one who can enforce the rules. So what happens in that situation is the person who makes the rules and also enforces the rules consolidates the power because it's consolidate within them, and they rule everybody else playing the game. So what happens is they sit on go, and as you get past go, they collect your $200, which is what happens to us. We live in a free country where you can never own land. Well, yeah, I can. I have a deed, and okay, don't pay your taxes. Watch what happens. We'll find out. We will find out what happens here. I already know what's going to happen, and it's okay with it. I'm okay with that. Um, we bought this land on a land contract. During that contract, the taxes will be paid by the guy that is selling it to me. Once that is up, I have about 3 years of life left at most, and I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is buying into what is the core of what has destroyed this country, which is paying an extortion fee to be left alone. You're free, yet you have to be permitted to exercise your rights. You're free, but if we don't like something you have done in the past, we disagree with something you've done in the past, we are taking those rights. So if a right can be taken, it's not a right, it's a privilege. Um, you have the self-proclaimed patriots. In my opinion, like I know how to deal with people that raise their hand and say, "I want to destroy everything that you value that's moral and just." I know how to deal with those people. They're easy to deal with, as long as there are not enforcers standing in between you and them and what's right and what's wrong. But when you have patriots, it's a little more complicated because the premise of the ideal is the same. I don't call myself a patriot. This has been a big topic of the day lately is patriotism. What is it? Where are the patriots at? Why are they not doing nothing? When are they going to do something? I'm here to tell you that today in this country, patriotism doesn't exist. If it did, when the Blue Line Gang had somebody pulled over, people would be stopping, injecting themselves into that situation and stopping that interaction from happening. They would not allow the extortion racket to continue on how it has, whether that be property taxes, road pirates, fuel taxes, whatever it is. We've been taxed into oblivion. Um, people are so simple-minded. 4 years ago, the big topic was all these millions and millions of dollars being funneled through Ukraine by the Biden family. And now the Biden family is at the head of funneling billions with a B of dollars back through Ukraine. Most of that money not going directly to Ukraine, rather going to, I guess it would be contractors. Can't think of the word right now. Defense contractors. And who has stocks in that? Where is that money being funneled back to? But we'll ignore that because we got to stand behind Ukraine because, these scary Russians, these evil Russians that we've been told all of our lives. We've been told a lot of shit in our lives, and most of it's not true. So when are you willing to accept that? Are you going to accept it? And then what do you do after you've accepted it? Because there's no going back. Once you know, you know. And that's the unfortunate thing about some truth. I ask myself all the time, if I could go back to being, the happy little sheeple who got up and went and worked my slave job to pay my slave taxes, to, be in my slave debt. If I could wake up tomorrow and forget all that I know, would I? No, I wouldn't. I want, I've thought about that a lot, and no, I wouldn't. And the reason for that is because if I did, people wouldn't hear my message. They wouldn't wake up. Things would continue on as they will. And we see where the country is going. It's not a secret. Everybody knows. Yet, no one's doing anything. And it's not because people don't want to do something. Everybody, even me to a certain degree, which I just kind of gave up on it. We'll get maybe we'll get to that in a second if I remember. It's always the you go first mentality. Well, you jump off the cliff first, and then I promise you, after I see you splat on the ground, I'll go next. No, you won't. No, you won't. How many patriots have died already? Like true fucking patriots have died already. And we've passed them off as criminals who should have just complied, right? Because free men comply with government dictates, government rules, government demands. If the founders had complied with government demands, we'd all have British flags in our front yards right now. If the founders were law-abiding citizens, we'd all have British flags in our front yards right now. If the founders were not fucking felons, treasonous felons, we would all have British flags in our front yard right now. And guess what? Even though they were treasonous felons, they still declared a fact that every human has the right to keep and bear whatever arms they choose to protect themselves from any violence or oppression brought their way. But back to the Patriots. Patriots don't believe that. They believe that, oh no, if you're a scary felon, government can take your right away. And we're okay with that. You know, we're not a democracy in founding. We're a democracy by choice. And it's evil. And it's majority rules. And even if, you know, you're a felon who, let's just say, for whatever reason, you get a firearm. And you don't bother anybody. And you have that firearm for decades. And somehow government finds out. Red flag laws. However else. They will fucking kill you in order to take that firearm from you. Even though you never bothered anybody with it. It's because the lines have been blurred between privilege, rights, right, wrong, immoral, moral, just, unjust. All those lines have been blurred. And people they can't understand and break what's happening down far enough to really understand what's going on. You know, I've said it before. A murderer, the guy who even murdered my son, has the right, or he had the right then too, still has the right, but he had the right to keep and bear the very arms he was pulling the trigger on as he was killing my son. He had the right to have that firearm. He had the right to bear that firearm. He had the right to pull the trigger on that firearm. He did not have the right to pull the trigger and point the gun at my son and kill him. He didn't have the right to murder my son. But it's two separate issues, completely separate issues. But we have been indoctrinated to believe that it's one issue. We must think of it as one issue. And what happens in the end is that it eventually affects you. It doesn't affect you today. Down the road, it will. How is that? Because when government can dictate who can or cannot own arms, in the end, no one whose government can own or who's not government cannot own arms. We see it all around the world. Look at every other country. Look at China. Look at Japan. All the Asian countries. People are just too blind, too stupid to see it. And there's stupidity at this point. You know, times are getting rougher. Times are getting harder for everybody. You know, you're spending more on fuel, more on power, more on parts, more on food, more on everything. What are you going to do when you burn through your savings? Because most people don't have the funds. Some people do. Most people don't have the funds to continue on at the rate we're going for an extended period of time. I know I don't. I'm a survivor, though. I always find a way. But what's going to be your way? What if you're the 60 or 70-year-old man or woman who has a limited savings and can no longer hustle, get out there and work? What's going to happen when they run out of funds in your community? Well, hopefully the community will. Hopefully the community will step up and help them. But at some point, there's going to be a large group of people who realize it's a losing battle, it's a battle they cannot win. And at that point, they are going to want to survive, because that's what humans do. Even if it means defaulting to the most evil, immoral acts known to man, they will do that in order to survive. And if you have kids or a wife or even you can't say that you won't do it. You're not going to sit there and starve as you watch your neighbor eat steaks. It's just not going to happen. Um, and people are always concerned with different things, and I kind of laugh at it, but it's not really funny. We got to worry about the UN coming in. The blue helmets, guys, the blue helmets are coming. Don't need to come. We have the modern day redcoats here already, and people love them and praise them, fly their gang flags even though they're not part of the gang. And that's what they are. They're a gang, and people are not going to wake up to it. For the most part, some people will. Daily, I tend to run into people who are seeing it. The problem is that they are not loud about it. They won't tell people what they see. They won't speak to their congregations about it and tell them what policing forces really are, even though they're the pastors. That just happened yesterday. Christy went to the laundromat and stuck a $20 bill in the change machine. It spit out her $20 bill, a $5 bill, and $120 something in quarters. So we called the laundromat. The guy who owned it is a pastor who happens to know Paul, PHFO 101, and he knows Paul because Paul was down here for a couple of months, and when he went to that church. So I just spoke with him for a few minutes, and he sees it. He's like, yeah, I know. The police are not our friends. I didn't ask him, but I gathered from just what he said that he doesn't preach that to his congregation. Why not? I don't make videos any longer. And like I said, there's nothing to say that I haven't already said. And as I've explained before, when you start with a message, your message is long. It's specific. It is in detail. Easy for people to understand. Well, the longer you speak that message, the shorter that message gets. Because you hear it every day. You hear yourself saying it every day. It's just like, when a band goes on tour, a lot of times they'll change up their set list in the middle of the tour once or twice. The reason for that is that they get bored with their message. They get bored playing the same songs over and over again. They've heard them so many times and played them so many times. They move on to something different. And what happens with my message, and I've seen this happening myself, is that my message got so short, it really didn't mean anything anymore. It just sounded like I was just a hater. Like I had a specific agenda other than everyone's freedom. And that's really all I care about. I just want you to be free. It's not about me. My life is over with as far as I'm concerned. I'm in my early 40s. I'm well hated. Federal government's now bribing states to enact these red flag laws. And even if you don't own firearms, it doesn't matter. But I won't tolerate anybody entering my castle without my permission. And in order to remove me from that castle, you're going to have to kill me. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them killing an unarmed man. My family knows that the likelihood of that happening and the probability of that happening is very high, especially because of the words I speak and how bad I am hated by the bootlickers for what I speak. And they don't hate me because we disagree. They hate me because there's no factual basis for the way that they feel other than what they claim to be against. And there it is. Like, I just want to be left alone. I just want to live my life. I want to keep what I earned. I want you to be happy. I want you to be free. I want you to be free from oppression. Patriotism is not about me. Back to patriotism. It's not about me. It's not about me not being oppressed. It's about you. It's about the person across the country I will never meet not being oppressed. And fighting to the point of being willing to die for that. I posted a quote the other day on my community tab. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's a really good quote. And it's about the men who just want to be left alone. I've said for a long time, it's always been the irate few that have changed the course of history or the course of the future since the beginning of mankind. It's always the irate few. Well, it's the irate few will, do what amounts to commit suicide in order to not change history for the worst or change the future for the worst, but change it for the better. Change it in order so that that guy that they will never meet on the other side of the country can live free from oppression. But will it ever happen? Probably not. Because people isn't worth it. I guess is what it boils down to. You hear people, the Civil War people. we're going to see the second Civil War. Well, hey, dipshit, there has to be a first Civil War in order for there to be a second Civil War. That's a key indicator that you have no goddamn clue what you're talking about. But what do you mean, freedom? We had a Civil War. Lincoln freed all the slaves. Yeah, okay. No, it was a war of northern aggression where free states and free people tried to remove themselves from an oppressive situation. And yeah, I know there was slavery. I don't agree with it. But you're not looking at the times. At the times, they didn't know how black people, what we call humans now, and white people, which what we call humans now, they did then too, how they were related. And I don't agree with this, but they were looked at as property, no different than you look at a dog today or you look at a cow. By this time in history, even if the South would have succeeded, they were on their way to abolishing slavery anyway. Nobody tells you that. It's the truth, though. Go do some research for yourself, and you'll find that most of those states were on their way to that anyway. But the War of Northern Aggression, which it was, because the South just peacefully wanted to secede, I can't say it. And the North said, oh no, we're not going to let that happen. We are the federal government. You created us. We have authority over you, although you have authority over us. And the ideals that we see today came to fruition, where the federal government, although it does not have the constitutional power, has the force to force what otherwise free people into doing things. But now it's so far gone that it can't ever be brought back. Freedom is gone. You can lie to yourself and tell yourself you're free. Like I said, go pay cash for a piece of property, build a home on it, build a multi-million-dollar home on it. Like right here, I think my property tax is $120 a year. It's 12 acres. Buy 12 acres out here, build a $1 million home on it, and then don't pay your property taxes for 3 to 5 years. Let's see how free you are. How free you are. If you can't own land, you ain't free. You're just paying the king's ransom to stay out of the king's jail. That's what you're doing. And to some degree, we all do it. I do it. I have a driver's license. I've thought about not renewing it when it's time. The last time I got a driver's license was before I learned what I learned. And I've thought about it deeply about not renewing it. And I may not, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But, the time's coming where tougher and tougher decisions are going to have to be made. I said this pre-COVID. I've been fighting the C virus shit since day one. If y'all remember, I had to have surgery right after they opened the hospitals back up for elective surgeries. And I fought it then. The mask shit, I've fought it since day one. Now I have worn a mask. I had to make a choice one day. And it wasn't even about my son. It was about the man who murdered my son while I wore the mask. Because I know that the state fucked him. How did the state screw him? Well, we still don't know what happened that day. Do I think my son was there to rob the kid? No, I don't. It doesn't make sense for him to go rob somebody having firearms, yet not taking a firearm with him. So I don't believe that. I believe that there was more to the story that we don't know about. Actually, if you want to know what I really think happened, because I think that the guy that picked him up, because my son's car broke down. He was there by absolute chance. My son was there where he was. His car broke down. He texts and calls somebody to come pick him up, his buddy. So his buddy comes and gets him. They leave straight from him picking my son up to go to the apartment where they were murdered at. So, talking to the other victim's mother, she died prior to the guy getting sentenced. But talking to her son owed this guy money for some weed. So, judging off of everything that I know, everything that has been said from everybody, here's what I think happened. I think my son's car broke down. He texted this guy, the guy picked him up. He said, hey, I want to go over here and pick up some weed. My son said, cool, because it was actually on the way to where my son was staying at the time. He said, that's fine. He walked in with the guy when he went in to buy the weed, something I've done 100 times with people. When he handed him the money to buy more weed, the guy told him that you owe me money, so here's the money you owe me. Where's the money for the weed you want? The guy didn't like that, so I know I'm kind of speaking fast, but I think when the guy handed him money to buy weed, he kept that money as the money that was already owed to him. Can't blame him. At that point, I think that the guy probably pulled the gun out, knowing that he was going to be attacked at least by the guy who handed him the money, and he shot him right in the chest when he tried to, get the gun away from him and do whatever. My son, being a third party there, probably feared for, the thought that he was just going to get shot. And he stood up and started, fighting the dude with the gun. The guy said that, he didn't mean to shoot my son, that it was an accident. Do I believe that? I mean, he shot him in a really awkward place if you're going to be shooting somebody after you shoot somebody, square in the chest. To shoot somebody in a downward trajectory in their hip, there's a possibility that, the gun, they were fighting, he had the gun in his hand, finger on the trigger, because he's not a gun handler, and he accidentally shot my son. There is that possibility. But we will never know, because the state won't release the information to us. They won't release discovery to us, because we're not the fucking defendant. So if we want that information, we have to get it through the defendant's lawyer. Well, the defendant's lawyer's not won't answer phone calls, because when you call and you say who you are, they probably automatically think that you don't have the best interest of their client at heart. So why would they give you anything? And with me, it did. I put a mask on to walk into court to tell the court that they were creating a murderer. They're taking a young man who made some bad choices and ended the lives of a couple people and murdered them, and they were creating a murderer by what they're doing to him, which was giving him 23 to life in prison. Now, my problem with this is that when a court takes a plea bargain, it's unconstitutional. You are violating you're violating your own restrictions on government. You're giving up those restrictions. You are incriminating yourself. You're saying, yes, I did this. That's not how our system is supposed to work. But then again, our system is not supposed to have government have authority over people either. But it does. At least it pretends to, and everybody buys into it. Therefore, it's hard to get around. But he pled guilty to murder. So my question was, do you understand what murder is? Do you understand the difference between killing and murdering? A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't understand that. You know, and these plea bargains they use as a way, as a means of getting these guilty pleas is total bullshit. They put up a little piece of paper in your face and they say, we're going to give you 35 to life. You're going to be an old man. You're going to be 60 years old by the time you get out. Your life will be over. You won't have a chance to be married, have kids, none of that. Or if you sign this little piece of paper right here and tell us that you did this, we'll give you 23 to life and you'll have the possibility of having a family. So he admitted he murdered my son. So my question was, do you know the difference between murdering and killing? To which the state would not let him answer. Why? Why would they not let him answer? So upon that, him not being allowed to answer, I demanded that the state released him. Most people think I did that because I wanted to go after him, and I didn't. I forgive the dude for what he did. I completely forgive him. I have no ill will toward him. I want him to do good in life. That's how he can pay his debt to me and my family. He can become something great, greater than what I am, greater than what my son would have been. He can, change the world. But he's never going to have that chance. And he's never going to have that chance because of a small technicality, right? Of just not knowing basic definitions. And we all, to some degree, don't understand basic definitions because we use terms like patriot. We call ourselves patriots. Not me. Some people call themselves patriots. Although there's nothing patriotic about them. Even more, they are enemies of the country, i.e. the people they claim to be staunch defenders of. So anyway, I wore a mask for that, and it was worth it to me. And I did it to try to save the kids from what I could, but I knew that I couldn't in my heart, and the court didn't give a fuck what I said. We've been lied to. They need to pay their debt to society. The debt is not to society, it's to a victim. That's how it's supposed to be. But we're also supposed to have community-based common law courts ran by the community from start to finish, from arrest, from accusation to arrest, to trials. It's all supposed to be within the community. Government's supposed to be over there governing. We are supposed to be over here running our shit, running society. It's not the way it is. Due to laziness. All because of laziness. And it's not going to get better. People are not going to wake up tomorrow and become unlazy. People are not going to wake up tomorrow and stop supporting state-hired thugs. And that's what they are. They're paid mercenaries. That's exactly what they are. Doesn't matter if it's your local sheriff, local town cop, state cops, feds. It's all the same. But what do you do? What do you do if you're in a position like me? All I can do is just demand to be left alone, live my life the best way that I can until the day comes that my card's pulled and I no longer can. That's it. Nobody's serious enough about building a community, a physical community, but everybody wants to be free. I don't even know anymore. I wish I had the answers, but I thought I did at one time. But people won't accept answers that involve sacrifice. You want a solution? Abolish policing forces, all of them. There's your solution. Time will work it out after that. You should be able to live your life in this country, your entire life in this country, without ever having an interaction with government in any way. That's how it's supposed to be. Yet, everything we do involves an interaction with government. You must have permission to acquire the basic necessities of life today. even if you pay for them all by yourself 100%. You must have permission to buy land. You must have permission to build on that land. You must have permission to put in a sewer system. You must have permission to put in electricity. You must have permission to build a outbuilding. Like, it's ridiculous. You must have permission to drive. It's just, you must have insurance. I tell people all the time I was born at the wrong time, and I really was. But hopefully in my lifetime, enough people have had enough, and um, patriots will then exist. But until people are starving, I don't see that happening. And even if they're starving, I don't see it happening, because most people will continue to need from government. All those people died in vain. All the people who fought so that we could have the chance at being free, they all died in vain. We're all a disgrace. We truly are. Especially those who support the oppression, i.e. police forces. They're true disgraces, but us who don't, we allow it to happen. So, But anyway, have a good day, and don't just accept what you see as being fact. You know, break it down to the 10th degree. Break it down as far as you can. We can't do that anymore, because we've been led to believe we have to think a certain way. Drinking and driving. We've had this conversation before. I don't promote it. I don't think it's I think it's irresponsible. I don't suggest you do it. I think it is not only irresponsible, but I think it's what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I can't think of it. But if you want to, if you wanted to drive on a road that you paid for, and you want to have some alcohol first, if you don't harm nobody, where's the crime? But freedom. It's about what could happen. They could hit a van full of a soccer mom and some kids. Well, you know what? That's the same argument that's being used now to try to take your fucking firearms. It's about what could happen. Quit accepting the indoctrination. Put that shit down, man. Learn to think for yourself.